Okay, dear venerable brothers, Dhamma friends, we are going to start the first Dhamma sermon of this retreat number 345. May you give your consent by saying Sadhu Sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Yang papanceti tato nidanang purisang papanca sanya sangka samuda charanti atitanagata paccuppannesu cakku viññayesu rupesu ti. Dear venerable brothers, Dhamma friends, so since this is the first day of our retreat, traditionally and usually we are giving few instructions basically about the retreat, how we need to be supported that. So particularly we are using a certain sutta called Anuggahita Sutta. Anuggahita means certain supports. So our whole practice have to be supported by 5 ways. First is through the morality, sila. So that's why we all administer sila, 8 precepts today to all the lay yogis. So that means we have uplifted our sila from traditional 5 precepts to 8 precepts. So that you feel that I am now on 8 precepts, I need to be little concerned than the previous days. So you have certain amount of a responsibility in a way, so that your mind, rather the body and the speech is fairly restrained. Typically we might not concern much about our speech. Therefore, we might even spend a lot of time in talking, chattering. On the other hand, we might not concern much about our bodily activities. Sometimes we might do harmful activities even for ourselves and the others. But on the other hand, now we are trying to restrain the body and the speech. So, one important thing is, as a result of that, we won't regret. So sometimes what happens if we are neglectful about our bodily activities or speech, later we might have to regret about it. Why I have done that? Why I have mentioned like that? So either if we conduct a bodily activity which is kind of a misconduct, or if we conduct a verbal misconduct, so then sometimes we later regret what I have done that. Why I did it? So it's too late now. I am regretting about it, worrying about it, crying about it. So in case if we are able to maintain a good moral conduct, a fair amount of good ethical conduct, so those kinds of regrets, grievances, worries become less and less. So that is one major advantage according to the Buddha, why we have to maintain proper sila. Avippatisaratta ananda kusalani silani. So when we are maintaining proper moral conduct, it helps us to have a fairly deserving atmosphere in ourselves. We feel, okay, I am a good person now. I am behaving well now. Compared to the previous days, previous times, okay, I have become a good person. So there are no worries. There are no any kind of accusations coming from myself. There is no inner worries coming, accusing myself. Rather, I feel I am a good person now. It's a kind of a self-worthiness or appreciation towards about yourself. So that's a very positive atmosphere we are preparing, which is quite essential for meditation. So when we feel, okay, I am a good person now, I deserve even some higher understanding. So that means I am capable of doing it. Other than thinking, okay, I am not a good person, I am really a bad character, I can't do it. So there you get a kind of a negative atmosphere which disables you to further practice. On the other hand, when you're getting a more positive atmosphere, you have the energy, you are more enthusiastic, and you feel deserving it, so you are practicing it. So that is what Buddha mentioned about the moral side. So we need that moral support. That's why the Sila Anuggahita is essential. On the other hand, the Sutta Anuggahita. So it is not something that we are doing as we want. Rather, there are certain guidelines laid down by the Buddha, and those are well defined. And it is not that we started practicing it, rather this is an ancient practice. So we are also practicing the same ancient path, according to that same ancient path. This path has been practiced by many millions of yogis, nobles, and it's a proven path. So we have nothing to, in a way, worry about it. So we have to properly align with the path. So time to time we have to investigate what Buddha has said. So what are the early Buddhist teachings? Why Buddha has mentioned like this? Am I in the correct track? Is my practice aligned with the Buddha's teaching? So this is something very important. Otherwise we are simply going here and there without knowing the proper practice. So that's why we need a fair amount of guidance coming from the suttas, so that we exactly know, okay, at this particular time, at this particular sutta, Buddha has mentioned like this, and I am fairly in line with that. So you feel more confidence when we are doing like that. Therefore, recognizing various suttas, understanding them, learning from them, getting fair amount of guidance is essential. Sutta Anuggahita is what we are referring here, coming that support, using that support. So it may be through listening, it may be through studying, nowadays browsing the internet even. So various techniques are available for us to know the teaching, listen to the teaching, read the teaching, learn the teaching. But on the other hand, there's another small thing I like to add. So that is where during our practice time, by the way, we have to maintain a fair empty kind of a mind or beginner's mind. If we think, okay, I'm really a knowledgeable person, I'm really an expert, then that would be an hindrance for our practice. So here in particularly what we are trying to do is to develop fair amount of meditative experience. So actually Buddha describes 2 or rather 3 types of wisdom. So one is what we call the Suttame Jnana, what we gain by listening, what we gain by reading. Still it's a superficial knowledge. It is not my knowledge, but it is something that external. So I have read it, I have studied it, so I have some understanding about it. Some superficial gathered knowledge came through learning. Suttame Jnana. Then after that actually I can think about it. So once I have gathered some knowledge, I can contemplate about it, I can logically think about it, rationalize it, so that I get further understanding, thorough understanding. So that is called the Chintame Panya. We are kind of a contemplation related knowledge. But here the third one is called the Bhavaname Panya. So that is what we are trying to experience during the retreat. It is an entirely experiential knowledge. So this experiential knowledge is quite different from Suttame Jnana and the Chintame Jnana, where you need a fair amount of grounding, fair amount of simplicity, fair amount of, in a way, humility, and a very simple mind. Not a complex mind, not a burdened mind, but a beginner's mind. That's why there is a famous book, a Zen book called Beginner's Mind, Zen Mind. So the Zen mind is a beginner's mind, where if you want to get concentration, even if you want to get open awareness, whatever, so it has to be a kind of a beginner's mind. So not a conditioned expert's mind thinking, okay, I know this, I know that. Rather you feel, okay, I'm just a beginner. I can start from the beginning. This is my first sitting. I'm open to whatever happens. So such an open attitude, beginner's attitude, is utterly important for our practice. So therefore, even though you have gathered fair amount of information, learned lot of suttas, and probably you have earned several degrees, but still, during the sitting session, during the walking session, keep the mind utterly relaxed. With the attitude of a beginner. I am just a beginner. I am kind of a humble person. I am able to be humble in front of the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha. I am just trying to experience what is happening right now with an open heart. So that attitude is important. And then the third support is what we call as a Sakaccha Anuggahita. support coming through the discussion. So even though I know certain things, even though I have practiced, sometimes did I take the correct decision at a given moment? Say I am practicing Anapanasati, I am practicing, say, Dhatu Manasikara, animals meditation. I have reached a certain point. At that time, I have a certain doubt. Do I need to do this so that? Did I take the correct decision? Or sometimes even if we have understood, learned certain suttas, did my understanding is the correct, best understanding, or is there is some more to it? Are there any other different meanings which I didn't understand? Is there a deeper meaning than what I have understood? So likewise, so in order to overcome various doubts and again to deepen our understanding, discussions are very important. So that's why we are conducting here during the afternoon a kind of a Dhamma discussion, discussing about our experiences so that we can communicate. We know, okay, exactly I have taken the correct decision, or I have to change it. There may be a certain other meanings of to this particular factor. So likewise, we are openly discussing, which help us to eliminate any kind of a doubt. And on the other hand, it helps to encourage us as well. Now, say for example, if I couldn't properly produce my question, write my question, present my question, there may be another person presenting the same question. So, by going through that, by listening that, even listening to the answer, I also get benefited. So, therefore, that is another advantage of this discussion. So, what we are discussing is not merely unique to me, it is a kind of a common fact. So, our human mind is having more common characteristics. So, someone else's question, someone else's answer might be the question and answer for me. So therefore, this open discussion is quite helpful in that sense. But there's a little danger also that also probably we can mention, that someone else's answer, if we are mistakenly taken for us, probably we might be going in a wrong direction. So sometimes certain instruction may be quite personalized. It's a unique, personalized answer given a certain instruction to a yogi. But I might have grabbed that mistakenly. I am trying to implement that, not knowing it is not relevant to me. So that is also something that we have to be careful of, that not all the answers are valid for me. So it depends on where I am, where is my practice is. So depending on that, I have to properly select proper answers, proper instructions. Accordingly, I can practice. So these things are important when we are participating into the discussion. So these are the three supports that Buddha mentioned. Now there are other two supports which are entirely related to the meditation, to the practice. That is Samatha Anuggahita, where how we are supporting ourselves with the concentration, in a way the one-pointedness of the mind. Typically our minds are fairly scattered. So we are thinking in this way, that way, there is no any particular order in our thinking. And mind is completely scattered, distracted. So with such a mind, it's difficult for us to understand Buddha's teaching, particularly the experience Buddha's teaching. For that, actually, we need a fairly concentrated mind. At first, it's a kind of a concentrated mind we need. A fairly focused mind is necessary. Not a scattered mind, rather well-focused mind is necessary. One-pointed mind is necessary. So that is what we are trying to do with the Samatha meditation, tranquility meditation, where we are trying to tranquilize the mind, calm down the mind, relax the mind, and keep it one-pointed. And we are introducing an object so that it is quite easy to again and again apply our mind to that particular object. So ultimately, mind becomes concentrated to that object. So given object is there. Say for example, you are using breath, and again you are applying your mind to the breath. In breath, out breath, in breath, out breath. Again and again you are applying your mind. So what happens after some time is that mind get concentrated closer to the nostril. Because you feel in breath and out breath closer to the nostril. So ultimately, even when breath is not available, still your mind remains there. Even though you don't have a strong feeling of breath, but now the mind has concentrated there exactly at your nostril. It doesn't want to get distracted now. It rather prefers to be there. So that is where we feel, okay, now mind has well concentrated. No wavering, no movement, no scattering. Rather, it stays there very calm, quiet, still. So this kind of a concentrated attention is necessary for us to go to the next level. That is what we call as the Vipassana Anuggahita, where we need to be supported through wisdom, the growth of the wisdom. That's what we are trying to do with, say, Vipassana or Satipatthana, where we are trying to understand the things as they truly are. So various phenomena are there. Now we need to understand their true nature. What is their true nature? It's a kind of an investigation, kind of an experiment. And we need a certain amount of skill to do that. We can't simply read a book and understand all those characteristics. We already know those things. We all know that all conditioned phenomena are impermanent. So all know. But that knowledge is simply superficial, not something experiential. So that's why we are trying to experience it, properly know that. Okay, what exactly this impermanence is meant? What exactly this suffering is meant? What exactly this non-self is meant? So likewise, so now we are going deeper in thorough understanding, and it's kind of a unique understanding. Someone else's understanding might not exactly same as my understanding. So I maybe personally understand it in my own way. It may align with the Dhamma later, but it may be kind of a unique way that each individual may understanding it. And we are experiencing it, we are sort of even explaining it, and then we can understand, okay, it is fairly aligned with the Buddha's teaching. I have now experientially know what exactly Buddha has mentioned. So that is where the Vipassana is important. So we are using mindfulness, we are using concentration and well-balanced effort to do that investigation. Through that investigation, we are developing various insights, gaining various insights. So this is a continuous process. So all these supports are continuously we have to use depending on the situation. Say for example, if you are going through a long trip, so you might be carrying a certain amount of food, maybe some water, some money, and time to time you are spending money to, say, spend some time, take a nap, take some rest, or you are spending some money to buy this and that. Time to time you take a rest and drink some water or have your meal. If you are at night, you are staying at some place. If you are not sure about the path, you ask from someone, or you may be referring your Google map. So anyway, so likewise, so we need certain instructions in our long journey. So those instructions, those supports are necessary. When you feel tired, you need to take a rest. When you are not sure about the path, you need to ask, you need to get the instructions. And when you feel, okay, I am correct in the path, now you can continue the path. So likewise, our spiritual journey also has to be supported using these 5 different supports. Through sila, through sutta, that means the learning, hearing, and then the sakacca, the discussion, samatha, the tranquility meditation, vipassana, that's the practicing of wisdom. So all these 5 supports are essential during the whole path which you are going through. And Buddha affirms that in case if we are able to support ourselves using these 5 methods, then we can accomplish complete deliverance of mind, complete deliverance through wisdom. Now, for this retreat, I have taken several suttas, actually not just one, but taken as a theme, how to achieve inner silence and stillness. So this is what we hope to discuss throughout this whole retreat. And as a support, today I thought of discussing how our mind chatters. Is your mind chatters? Is it talking? Is it chattering? Or is it completely silent? Now actually I can remember how I started. So when I became a monk, So I try to keep my mind on a particular object, say in breath and out breath, and it is utter mess. I couldn't believe it, and how much scattering was there in my mind. How much thinking was there in my mind. It couldn't stay even a single second on a given object. So that's how I started. So therefore, you don't need to get discouraged thinking, okay, my mind is really distracted. I can't keep my mind on breath or rising and falling, or just I can't do any walking, so much of thinking. That is how even I started. So this is a very common thing. And nowadays, we are too much thinking. Most of us are addicted to thinking. Many people are even, say, mentally going through various disorders, even because of overthinking. Say, if you are thinking more and more on a given, say, worrying subject, it can even lead you to depression. Or if you are thinking more in an anxious way, probably it can even lead you to anxiety. So different mental disorders are there, but the root cause is too much thinking, overthinking. So therefore, this is a huge problem nowadays, because our lives have become more complex, and sometimes there are many disturbances coming through the society and through a lot of social media, and we have become addicted to them. So ultimately, we become completely driven by many devices. So all of you may have used the handheld device, or all of you have used the internet. All of you have gone through various news channels, and you may have subscribed to various podcasts and this and that. So a lot of information being bombarded to ourselves. Unlike the past, now we are being very much victimized to too much of information. And unlike the past, this information is readily available. You don't need to spend a lot of time to have information. Quickly you can gather a lot of information. There are advantages, but at the same time there are a lot of disadvantages. So easily we can be addicted to certain news channel. Easily we can be addicted to certain whatever, a YouTube channel, maybe a WhatsApp group, Facebook group, this and that. So this is how we slowly being consumed by the media, being consumed by a lot of social other activities, news channels, advertisements, etc. What happens ultimately is we become addicted to thinking. We can't stop ourselves. Mind become really burdened, and we feel heavy and continuously thinking, no stop. So this is a kind of a epidemic that we are going through in nowadays. So many people are addicted to thinking, and they don't know how to control themselves, and no stop in the mind. Continuously mind is occupied. And Buddha in detail, or in Dhamma in detail, this is explained how this has happened. You may be familiar with these facts, but anyway, for the completeness I am explaining it. So probably you might have heard about the Madhupindika Sutta. So how this is explained, well explained in this particular sutta. So in one occasion, actually Buddha was living in Kapilavattu, Nigrodharama, and he was spending his evening time in Mahavana, that's a large forest. There he met one Sakyan called Dandapani. And he asked particular question, what is your view? And then Buddha gave a fairly deep answer. This person couldn't understand that, and he simply left the Buddha. Later, during the gathering of the monks, Buddha tried to explain it. The monks also didn't understand. And they asked various questions. Buddha also tried to explain, but still they didn't understand the brief teaching of the Buddha. And Buddha also not concerned about teaching them, but he left. Now the monks were in a puzzle. Now they are thinking. They are also into thinking now what Buddha has mentioned, and we didn't understand that. So now Buddha has gone to his dwelling place. So where are we going to ask this question? Who is going to explain this? And to their mind, it came Venerable Mahakachana. Venerable Mahakachana is a popular monk in explaining things in detail and with simple terms. So now they approach Venerable Mahakachana and they want to ask this question, what Buddha has meant from this particular phrase. But Venerable Mahakachana refused. You should have asked when Buddha was there. So you are just coming to me, but you should have asked from the teacher. He is the enlightened one. But then monks again and again repeated and pleaded, asking the same question. And then only Venerable Mahakachana start explaining how it happens. Now, if we see the statement, how he is explaining, he particularly explained how thinking or overthinking happens as a result of sensual or sense reaction happening at the eye faculty. Some sort of a reaction, some sort of a communication happens through eye and the form. Some sort of an action happen to the ear and the sounds. Some kind of an action happen between nose and the odors. An action happen between tongue and the taste. An action happen between the body and the tangibles. An action happen between the mind and the mind objects. So this is how we perceive the whole world. And we as human beings, living beings, so we have all these 6 senses. And through these 6 senses, we are communicating with the whole entire world. So if I want to talk to someone, then I have to look at, I have to hear, might have to touch, might have to smell. So that is how I am trying to communicate, particularly through the eye, through the ears. So I am trying to communicate. Now, during this transaction, why my mind get into too much thinking? If there is a simple communication needs to be done, so why I should get into too much thinking? That's a question in a way. Say you are traveling through a vehicle and there is a road sign. That road sign indicates, okay, there is a forthcoming, say, a steep hill. So probably it may be indicated through the road sign. A kind of a communication method. Now, does that lead to too much thinking? Or are you able to simply take a hint from that and prepare yourself and continue your path? So this is also a kind of a way of communication. But on the other hand, when we are directly communicating with different people, or when we are dealing with various other external objects, so we can't stop ourselves thinking. So we are prone to think. And we being sort of stimulated to think, and we being even encouraged to think. And people even ask from us, why don't you think like that? Why don't you think about it? So people even encourage us to think. So even if we are able to be quiet, not reacting impulsively, probably others come and even encourage us to react. They even promote us to think. So this is kind of a way that we are being promoted to think, promoted to react, certainly take certain actions. So likewise, so this is how actually we are living in the society. So now Venerable Mahakachana is explaining the various, the genesis of this whole process. Now if we come to the very fundamentals of our sense reaction, so we know that there is an eye. In front of the eye there is a form. What we gather is simply its shape and maybe few figures, few marks, few signs. And that is what being registered in our eye. And that is why we have certain kind of a knowledge about that, what we have seen. Chakkuncha paticca rupecha ubbacchati chakku viññānam. So Venerable Mahakachana explains, as a result of eye and the form, there is a knowledge, there is a knowing, there is a cognition happen at the eye. So still we are in a very primary level, very minute level information. Tinnan sangati passu. Now it happens repeatedly. It is not instantaneously finished, but rather it happens again and again. My eye is still open, form is still available, light and all other necessary conditions are available. So this process happens repeatedly, again and again, again and again. I form I consciousness, I form I consciousness, I form I consciousness. Kind of a chain reaction going on. So I consciousness is the kind of knowing part, thinking that based on the fact that there is a form outside, there is I here, and there I see that, something like that. So this is how the contact happens. So there's a kind of a recognition promoted by this whole process. So when this initial process happen till feelings, චක්කුංචාවසෝ පරිච්ඡ රූපේ චුප්පජ්ජ චක්කු විඥානං තින්නම් සංගති පස්සෝ පස්ස පච්චා වේදනා. Now a feeling is being produced. Assume that you feel excited, you feel happy. After that little sense reaction. So till this level, actually it is a kind of a causal reaction. It's a kind of a cause and effect relationship. Even an arahant may go through that. And next what happened? Now I am being triggered. Okay, what is that? Now I want to recognize it. Yang vedeti tang sanjanati. Now I am interrupting the process. Now I am putting my finger. Now I am sort of participating into the process. Now I am there. I want to recognize. So this recognition part being fairly conditioned. Fairly conditioned. That means it depends on each individual. How you recognize is fairly conditioned by how you being taught, how you being programmed, how you being educated, how you being cultured, how you being influenced by your culture, your education, your parents, your siblings, this and that. So this recognition part is fairly colored. It is not same way that everyone is recognizing. Yang vedeti tang sanjanati, yang sanjanati tang vitakketi, yang vitakketi tang papancheti. Now once you recognize, you want to probably think about it. Now the thinking starts. You are thinking, you are promoting a certain thought. Thinking happens. But this thinking also conditioned, also colored. And how you think might be different from someone else's thinking. And how you recognize might be different from someone else's recognition. And without stopping mere one thought, two thought, now I am adding many thoughts, manifold thinking. So many directions. It is not a proper orderly directional thinking, but we start to think in many directions. With respect to the past, I can think. With respect to the future, I can think. With respect to what I have seen, I can think. Probably I can relate it to some other experience and then I can think. I can imagine and I can think. There may be various preconceived ideas in me. I can link to that preconceived ideas and again I can think. So kind of a multi-directional, manifold kind of thinking. That is what we call papancha. That is what we call proliferation. It is not a properly ordered, directional, well objectified way of thinking. Rather it's a completely irrational or sometimes completely multi-directional, manifold kind of thinking. This is how now we promote that papancha, promote proliferation. Now we already participated into the activity. We promoted thinking. And now the third step is the very interesting one. Yam papancheti tato nidanam purisam papancha sanya sankha samudacharanti atat anagata pachuppannesu chakku vinyeyesu rupesu. Now what happened next is that you become a victim on this whole proliferating process. Now you can't stop thinking. Previously you are the one started thinking, and it has a tendency to think in manifold ways, many different directions, and you are there, you knowingly did that. But what happens next is that it has become so dynamic, it has gathered a lot of momentum, and now it is driving you towards many different directions of thinking, and you are simply a victim of that whole process of thinking. So this is what we become kind of overwhelmed by thinking. Now you have no say. Now you have no help. And you are simply being captured by the machine of thinking. So it's like, say for example, that hand-driven tractors, the hand-start tractors, probably have seen, right? So how are we giving the initial momentum, initial start, the force? We do that, the hand force is used, right? To again and again rotate it. Ultimately it starts. Then what happens? We can get into the tractor and then we can, and it is capable of driving us. We can, even put a lot of load to it and we can carry heavy load even using that. Now the driver has some control even in that case, but here even more unfortunate that I have no control. I am the one who started the machine of thinking, but now I am the poor victim of that very thinking. So this is the real, danger in this kind of thinking. Now the important thing is this is not unique to our eye. It is happening even to what we have heard. Suppose that on the way to here or on the way to your whatever the office, probably you have heard a little news. So you simply have heard it, but not maybe properly analyzed it, but you start supporting it, thinking it, and till you are traveling, probably you are thinking about it. Why he has mentioned like this? Why he has mentioned like this? How could this going to happen like that? So many different ways you are adding many doubts to it, lot of perplexities into it, imaginations into it, and ultimately it become really a confusion and you can't stop thinking now. And you even come to wrong conclusions. So that's why it get into a lot of arguments. So this proliferation has many consequences in that sense. So once you can't stop thinking, it will take you to wrong conclusions. It can take you to wrong views. It can take you to wrong decisions. So all these decisions, all these conclusions, imaginations actually are fairly conditioned, utterly wrong. And you may get into certain arguments with others, quarrels with others, battles with others, but unfortunately you are victimized by very thinking. So this is what happened going through the proliferation process. So proliferation process has become a huge problem in today's society. So we are victimized to that sort of proliferation, overthinking, rumination. Now, different categories of thoughts are there. So if we look at little into that, so different thoughts. So sensuality related thoughts. Say we may be thinking about very beautiful sights, sensuality related sights. We are thinking about it, we are imagining about it, visualizing them, and we want to capture them through our, maybe to the phone, to the camera. Again, we want to frame them. So we are really eagerly thinking about those sensuality related various forms, sights, and maybe various sounds, and you are maybe recording them again and again, listening to them again and again, enjoying them. Various sounds are there. And similarly, the smells, taste, tangibles, and even when they are not there, what are we doing? Suppose there is no any beautiful sight. Suppose there is no any kind of a beautiful music, enjoying music. There is no particular smell. It's kind of just a neutral smell is there. And you are not eating anything, you are not tasting anything. And there is no any particular interesting sense, rather tangible as well. What are we going to do? Why not think? So we can have the facility to think, so it is free of charge. You don't need to spend money to think. So why don't you think about it? So we are even promoted to think, so we still think. So so now say for example, you are taking a vacation. Suppose you are even going to a foreign country because of your vacation. So after you go on vacation, what are you doing? Say you ate and you have some time and assume that there is no one close to you. Suppose now you are in the beach and you have all the resting bed and this and that. Probably you may take a novel and maybe reading it. Again promotes thinking. You may be simply looking far the shore. Again maybe thinking. Or you may be simply keeping your hand on to your chin and again thinking, imagining, fantasizing. Even though I want to take a rest, but I am not giving a rest to the mind. And I don't even know how to give a rest to the mind. Maybe the body taking certain amount of rest, but not the mind. And we don't know even how to give a rest to the mind. Rather, we even promote thinking while we are on a vacation. That's why we take maybe a novel, maybe another storybook, or maybe some other hobby, or maybe a laptop, maybe you are watching a movie. This is how we think, okay, I have to take a rest. But the mind is still occupied. Mind is not resting. Mind is still thinking, still imagining, still fantasizing. Now, these fantasies, these thinking, these different ways of thinking, actually we can divide into many groups. What we call kama vitakka, sensuality related thinking. So all different sense related thinking about the sight, sound, smells, tastes, tangibles. So this is what we appreciate, this is what we want. I want this, I want that. So all are the panchakama, all are for certain sense gratification. So we are thinking in line with sense gratification. Sensuality related thinking, kama vitakka. Then the vyapada vitakka. I might have certain grudge towards another person. I don't want to be with him. I don't like him. He has done this, he has done that. So I have certain ill will towards him. So the thoughts of ill will, vyapada vitakka. So even if you are here, probably you may have certain person in your mind. Even though you are here, probably you have carried that person in your mind. So you certainly time to time probably have thoughts about him. In your mind, there may be few people. Do you? Do you have any people in your mind? Say someone who has told you something while you are, say, at your office, who has sometimes attacked you, maybe verbally, belittled you at another occasion, or maybe criticized you, or maybe a competitor to you. Probably we are carrying him and maybe thinking about him and using certain thoughts of ill will. So the vyapada vitakka. On the other hand, we have vihinsa vitakka and thinking how to harm another person. Maybe it's the same person. So how to harm? Thoughts of ill will and then even harmful thoughts towards another person. And the opposite are also there. So that is nekkhamma vitakka. Thoughts of renunciation. Say how to give up things, how to let go of things, how to abandon things, how to overcome things. Maybe in a way good. Relaxing things, abandoning things. Thoughts of renunciation. And then avyapada vitakka. Maybe certain thoughts of loving kindness, certain friendly thoughts. So those are also still thinking, by the way. And then avihinsa vitakka, kind of harmless thoughts that you want to help another person, you want to say sympathize to another person. So those are another group where we are more into the empathy side. Now anyway, all these are thoughts. And one we can say more into the wholesome side, another group we can say more into the unwholesome side. So there are wholesome thoughts and again there are unwholesome thoughts. And now, while you are meditating, suppose that you are getting certain thoughts about your, say, friends, thoughts about your children, thoughts about your father, your mother, and some sort of your friends. Are you going to promote those thoughts or you going to stop it? Now, are they really bad or are they really good to think? So now we are coming to more subtle thoughts. Now we all can understand thoughts of ill will, we all can understand thoughts related to the sensuality, maybe harming others, that we can easily understand. But how about thoughts of helping another person? Maybe telling him about the Buddha's teaching, promoting him also into the meditation. While sitting, while you are into the meditation, say you are getting thoughts about someone else's and helping to him, to her, and maybe teaching to your parents, promoting them also to the Dhamma path. Even though I asked them, they didn't participate. Probably I better return back. Once I return, I better promote it. I should have informed to my friend also. Maybe I ask him to come to the next retreat. So what we call the Jnati Vitakka. Very subtle. Appear like good. And we might even promote that. We might start thinking that. But later probably it can even turn into kind of a Kama Vitakka. So if you think about that person more and more, probably kind of an affection can happen, lust can happen, attachment can happen, or the opposite, even can ill will happen. But started in a more innocent way. So that's why when we are getting to the area of thoughts, at the beginning it is quite easy to understand wholesome thoughts and unwholesome thoughts. And once we are able to overcome them, calm down them, then there are very subtle thoughts. And we can't even understand they are to be abandoned. So that easily we may be promoting it. What we call Jnati Vitakka. Thoughts about your friends and relatives. And then thoughts about the country. Say we are going through certain, say, economic crisis and we have to participate, we have to help. And probably we'll start another Aragalaya. So we need to, say, promote the country, we need to protect the country, we have to invest the country, this and that. Or the, say, certain region. So there are a lot of political affairs. Okay, I need to participate. So active participation. So all these things appear like correct. So otherwise I am not a good citizen. I am a kind of a selfish person. So you might feel, okay, I need to contribute. I need to protect, I need to participate. What we call the Janapada Vitakka. Janapada Vitakka. Related to the region, related to the country, related to your, say, area. Some kind of a affair is there. You have certain concern about it, some worry about it, some responsibility about it. You start thinking. And then how about your health? Definitely you have to look after my health, right? So if assume that you take a little sickness here, probably you might get into a heart attack. Who knows? Maybe a little chest pain. Probably you can imagine it to be a heart attack. Maybe the little symptoms only today. I should have take to a doctor. I should don't know whether these people have an ambulance close by at Nissarana. So you might start thinking about the health and appear like correct. So maybe a little symptom, but you may be imagining this way, that way, and proliferating this way, that way. Ultimately, you can't stop thinking. Now you get up and run to the office asking for help and need to see a doctor. And why not call an ambulance? Because even a subtle little chest pain can take you to a lot of thinking. It can, magnify the whole thing, multiply the whole effect. And too much thinking even can take you to a real chest pain. So it is also possible because you become anxious, you become really frightened, It can be a real threat now. So therefore, thinking about various ailments, various diseases, little pains, aches, appear like correct, and we might even promote it. But these are also thoughts, thinking about our health. And then there are another areas like, say, about your reputation. Suppose that while meditating, if you start nodding and someone else has noticed it, so probably they may be thinking bad about me, right? So I'm not a good meditator, I'm not giving a good example. I'm every time nodding while, sitting. Even I am walking in a zigzag way while walking because I feel drowsy. Others might have noticed it. And today also I have left to my room and had a nap. Probably the organizers might have noticed it. So you start thinking about your reputation, isn't it? I should be giving a good example, and others might have think more wrong way about me. Others should think properly about me. Others should think in correct way about myself. So about your reputation, there may be various thoughts. Anavanyatti patisangyutta vitakka. So all these thoughts appear like correct, very subtle. And then about the gains, fame, these are another area where you feel, okay, this can lead to certain promotion to myself, and I can promote mindfulness. I can also become a teacher. I can be a good, reputed person. I can start a company. Nowadays, mindfulness is a multi-billion-dollar business. Why not I start a new company promoting mindfulness? Probably I can write a book. So all sort of different gains and fame related thoughts. That is also related. Labha sakkara patisangyutta vitakka. And all these things are very, very subtle, appear like correct, and we start thinking, but ultimately it can lead to overthinking, and it can even convert to thoughts of ill will, thoughts of sensuality, or thoughts of even to harmfulness. Suppose you are a really talented yogi, and you are able to overcome all these different thoughts. Now, there are another interesting thoughts categories there. What is that? Now you are thinking about Madhupindika Sutta, maybe thinking about what's that? Yonuso Manasikara, maybe Anidassana Vijnana, maybe thinking about Appatittita Vijnana, maybe thinking about, say, what's that? Karaniya Metta Sutta, maybe Mangala Sutta. So various different Dhamma topics are there. Why don't you think about it? Interesting, right? Thinking about the Dhamma. Dhamma vitakka vasissanti. So thinking about Dhamma also is another category of thinking. And we even promoted that as a meditation technique, what we call Dhammanussati. Like we do Buddhanussati. So you can think about the Dhamma, what we call the Dhammanussati. That is in a way very good, because rather than thinking thoughts of ill will, rather than thinking thoughts onto sensuality or to harming another person, thinking about the Dhamma is something very good. So therefore, at the beginning, we can use it. But later, suppose that you are practicing Anapanasati, suppose that you are practicing Satipatthana, there are even Dhamma-related thoughts, ultimately you have to abandon. So you can see how we have come through. So we started with sensuality related, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind related, too much thinking, overthinking, proliferation. That is entirely a victimized area. We have been victimized to overthinking. That is one huge area. And later we come to another area. Okay, these different categories of the thoughts are there. Thoughts into sensuality, thoughts into ill will, thoughts into, say, harmfulness. And probably we may be able to abandon that. And we might have used the wholesome side, thoughts of renunciation, thoughts of loving kindness, thoughts to help another person, and that may be have used to abandon the wrong side, the unwholesome side. Now even we need to abandon that wholesome different thoughts, and later we come across subtle thoughts about the friends, thoughts about the relatives, thoughts about the children, parents, about the country, the region, about the health, and then about our reputation, about gains, fame, etc. Even that has to be calmed down. And later now we come across, okay, thoughts about the Dhamma. Are we promoting it or are we going to abandon it? Very difficult, because sometimes we are compelled to think about the Dhamma because it's giving us a lot of enthusiasm, it gives a lot of confidence, and why not able to stop it even? These are the areas actually we need to see. Now, more and more we are into the wholesome side. So wholesome thoughts are also another area we need to little be careful of. So if we start thinking too much about even wholesome thoughts, we can be a victim of wholesome thoughts. We can be a victim of too much thinking even into the Dhamma. Thinking too much about the Dhamma related topics. And the interesting thing is, you might have to even write a book about it. You want to publish about it. You probably want to make a YouTube video. And even someone going nearby, you want to catch him and even teach him. That is also possible. So because we become more anxious, we become into more victimized even to thoughts. So we'll see how further we can get into this subject. Now we have learned about mental proliferation, conceptual proliferation, and various different categories of thoughts, thinking. And we'll see from tomorrow further into this topic. And with that note, I will conclude today's Dhamma sermon. Thank you very much for attentive listening.